Good evening, folks. We're going to give it a few more minutes to let some folks hop in. We're so thrilled that you're here, and we look forward to a great conversation tonight between our Vice President and Vice Provost, Mary Pat McMahon, and our new football coach, Coach Manny Diaz. Thanks for joining us. Let's give it about 90 seconds or so to have people log in. I'm going to go ahead and get started as folks begin to log in and join us. Again, folks, welcome. We're thrilled that you're here. My name is Ben Adams. I'm Senior Associate Dean of Students for QuadX and the Director of New Student and Family Programs. And we're thrilled to have you join us tonight for a conversation between Vice President and Vice Provost Mary Pat McMahon and our new head football coach, Coach Manny Diaz. Before I pass the mic and introduce Mary Pat, I do want to take just a second to give you a little bit of background information about these webinars that we do. We offer these webinars throughout the year. Typically, most of them are in the spring as a way for you as family members and as parents of Duke students to connect with the life of your student, to see what it is that they take part in as being Duke students. So we offer these throughout the year as a way for you to connect with departments sometimes, and sometimes just interesting people on campus. And certainly we're joined by a new star on our campus in Coach Diaz. To go ahead and preview a couple things to come. One is that we know that the time is always difficult for folks. We're catching people at dinner time in the middle of the week. And so we do record all of these, and we'll go and post them later on so that you can watch them later, or you can share them with other parents that you may know in the Duke community and the Duke network. The second thing to know is that we will have our next webinar in March. It'll be on March 26th, and that's with our office. We call it I&E, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, to talk about the cutting edge work that they do with our students, including both entrepreneurial work, but also setting our students up to fail, to be prepared to fail. And so they just phrase it in an interesting way, but it helps our students navigate kind of obstacles that they may face in their personal and professional careers. But enough about what's to come. I'm excited to jump into tonight's conversation. So let me introduce to you, again, our Vice President and Vice Provost, Mary Pat McMahon. She is our Vice President and Vice Provost of Student Affairs. And as that, she's responsible essentially for the vision, the strategy behind all of the student services that we provide to our 16,000 plus undergraduates, graduate, professional students. If you touch campus, you probably touch something that Mary Pat is responsible for, and her visionary and bold leadership is what has propelled us to kind of the next tier of Duke, of our reputation. And so we have incredible leadership here. She's served in previous positions at Tufts. She's been at Bowdoin College. She's been at NYU. She's been at Yale. She's a Yale grad. So she comes with a tremendous amount of experience, but also she comes with just an incredible reputation in the field of student affairs. And so we're thrilled to have her leading us here at Duke. And so I'm going to pass it over to Mary Pat to take it away for this interview and this great conversation with our new head football coach. So Mary Pat, let me punt to you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Ben. Thanks, Dalton. Appreciate the new students team. And thanks to Coach, who's got a lot going on with spring training and spring season underway, for spending some time with us. If it's all right by you, I'm going to jump right in. We got a lightning round to get the questions going first. So, Coach, what's your favorite tradition at Duke so far?
Oh, wow. Well, I think just watching the energy in the basketball games. And every game I've been to so far, and I've tried not to miss one since I've been here, it's just been a show.
Yeah.
And the show is the students. It's hard at times to take your eyes off the students and put it back on the game. So looking forward to feeling that same energy in Wallace Wade next year and creating all kinds of great memories.
That's great. I think you want a lot of fans immediately as soon as you put the Baker hat on and went into the student section at your intro day. I mean, that picture's going everywhere.
Great. After that free throw went in, I was on cloud nine. So
Pretty
I was
good.
yeah.
My free throw when I did it did not go in, but I felt good about the kid that I got to be sort of highlighting on the day. All right, next question. What's your favorite tradition on game day?
Oh, Duke or just in general
In
in
general,
terms of,
yeah, yeah,
I think if you think about a college football season, we only play 12 regular season games and maybe a bowl or, conference championship, whatnot. Um, so these young men work so hard, and it is almost a 365 day a year calendar of the effort, energy, and focus that not just, I mean, Duke and all over the country that these people put in and make a lot of sacrifices. So just when you wake up on that day, and normally the team, you'll be in a hotel the night before the game, so everybody can be focused and to be together. And when you see everybody that morning, um, and it's like coming down the stairs on Christmas and just getting to celebrate. Today we get to almost open the presents from all of our hard work. And then the last thing I would think, well, I'll use two, is when the bus pulls up at the stadium and you get to see all the fans tailgating,
yeah,
and just feel that, like, that pride everybody has in the school. And then the last thing is when you won the game, and actually home or away, but even when a lot of times what's really fun is when you win away, and in your little corner you've got all the fans from your school, and you get a chance to kind of celebrate amongst those. um but winning anywhere is amazing, and to be able to celebrate with your fans afterwards is always special.
Oh, I can't wait for that. It's going to be so much fun when that's our experience here in Durham. It's going to be just incredible. All right, last lightning round question. If you could have coached any historic college football game in all of time, which one would you have loved to have coached?
Let's see. There's been some crazy ones, through the years. I was really until this year, I was able to coach the last Texas A&M game. They thought that would be the last one forever, but nothing lasts forever, as we know. I don't, what I'd have to say, one of those old time, or really not in any generation, any era, Army, Navy,
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
that always seems, like, you're with the best of the best,
Yeah.
in our country, and talking about sacrifice and but that day, the setting, seeing, everyone in the stands in uniform, that's got to be something, that's got to be a very unique experience to this profession.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, that one's on my bucket list. I haven't done it yet. And I can't wait to go to Annapolis or West Point at some point and get to that game. So you've been at Duke for 3 months now, and everyone is thrilled to have you. I think that the whole campus is just so excited to have you joining us in so many ways. Can you share a little bit about what attracted you to this opportunity here at Duke? And now that you're here, what's your sense of the Duke community at large?
Well, I was fortunate. I had a little bit of inside information. David Feely, our strength and conditioning coach in the program, was here the last couple of years. There were a few other coaches on the staff, that I was aware of, that I had worked with before. And over the last couple of years, the success of the program was happening. I was having regular conversations with these gentlemen, and so it's always about the people, right? And everything I heard about the players we had here at Duke, that they were just extraordinary. They're extraordinary people to coach, extraordinary people to be around, just the best of the best. And so, certainly when the job came open, it's what you want to be around. You want to be around great people who want to do things the right way and are about the right things. And since coming here, not only has that proven to be true of what's in our locker room, but now you get around campus, you get around the Duke community, you meet the alumni, everybody, and it just feels like the next person is more extraordinary than the last. And everybody is so united in their love for Duke, and it's remarkable to meet the people who I've had the opportunity to meet, and how successful they are, and the crazy things that they've done in life, and how they believe that none of it would have happened if it wasn't for their time at Duke. And you see it, and you see now you see the parents, and they've got their children at Duke, and their uncle went to Duke, and their sister went to Duke. It's just crazy how people are really dialed in on what their experience here did for them in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that being the sort of very clear through line for my first 3 months here. I think a lot of families have that same experience that you're talking about right now, which is the sort of, oh my gosh, the depth and the breadth of the sort of the passion for the place and the excellence that people bring to every aspect of Duke is it's remarkable. It stretches everybody, helps you grow. The follow-up question I have for you on that one, I got to be a part of your interview process, loved the conversation that you had with academic leaders and senior administration as part of your what I always think is kind of a whirlwind process on these head coach hiring efforts. Do you have a moment in that interview process where you kind of said to yourself, besides the interview with, with our group, that you said, you know what, I'm a Blue Devil, I see myself here. Do you have a moment?
Well, there were a few. I mean, the one that really stands out was meeting with President Price.
Yeah.
And just getting to feel the vision, you see it, but you feel it. You feel that the passion and the energy behind it. And again, and just what a great person, and fully committed to seeing Duke be elite in all endeavors. I always say alignment wins, and it's got to come from the top down. And why can't Duke be great at everything that Duke does? And so to hear that, straight from the president was a critical moment, and I know for me in that process.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I also remember that from my interview day moment at Duke. And, our president is somebody whose values and consistency over time, it just keeps getting better. I'll tell you, that's one of the things that's been so, differentiating for a lot of us here for a long time. It's just fabulous. Let's talk a little bit about your team. And there's so much that the football team has to be proud of right now. A lot of successes to celebrate. How do you celebrate the successes of a team in addition to win-loss, right? Like everybody knows the win-loss record, but how do you celebrate successes? What do you see that's really sort of distinctive in this group in that respect?
We have something that we talk about as a staff where and I think this can go outside of football as well. There is success and there is excellence, and they're not the same thing. A lot of times success is something that is compared to somebody else. And look, it's all about, we want to win the game. There's no question. And we do celebrate winning games because it's hard to do. But excellence is really what we're chasing. And that's a very different thing. And excellence can show up in a lot of different ways. I mean, we were talking about it today as a staff. I mean, excellence, we can be jogging through a football play and we can actually jog through it with excellence. And I know that sounds crazy, but if we're going to step a pass route in the exact same way that we would do it, to win the ACC championship, then you can actually do that, even though that there's no one watching, even though that you're not at full speed, you're not even in pads. There's just a right way of doing things. And the more you get around a group of people who are enamored by just doing things the right way, then normally what happens, and which really is excellence, then normally the success as it's defined by other people, that just kind of comes along with it. So we celebrate all the wins, because the wins come in all the places where no one's watching. And if you stack enough of those, then usually when people are watching, you come out victorious.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And it's, one of those things that football programs, just by sheer scale, that sort of stackable day by day, sort of bucket by bucket approach to things is, it really does build over time. It's just fantastic. Have you seen glimpses of that kind of excellence in the team? What stood out to you sort of in these early months?
Yeah, the team, as I felt before I came here, their work ethic, the way they go about their business. And again, David Feely gets a lot of credit for that, for what he's done in our weight room. But they really, really, believe that the way that they work sets them apart from other programs. And that knowing, is really important, because now when you bring new people in the program, we had 8 new freshmen join us, in January. And that's when the older guys get to train them and say, listen, what makes us unique and what allows us to win games is the way that we work when no one's watching. So that part has really been impressive to see coming in, not just for me, but for our new coaches as well.
Oh, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about this generation of college students. So, you've been working with college students professionally for a while now. Many parents and families that are going to be listening to us talking are parenting a college student for the first time, or maybe they have a couple at this age. How have you learned over time to work with this generation of college students? What tips would you might be able to share for parents and families?
It's a fascinating question that we discuss as a staff quite often.
Yeah,
I think in some ways, everything has changed, and I think in some ways nothing at all has changed.
I agree.
What I mean by that is I think the pure nature of a coach player relationship, which is no different for any of the parents on this call of, I mean, what parenting a child, and meeting those needs. I really don't think that those things have changed. I mean, for a player, they want to know that you care, they want to know that you're competent, that you can help them, and that you're dedicated, that you can see a potential in them even beyond they can see in themselves, and that you have the plan to help them, reach that goal. And part of that goal is you've got to submit to something bigger than yourself, which is what the team is about. It doesn't happen by just, we are not an individual sport. And I think that's where the part where you say everything has changed, because we are certainly now living in an era where, there's a lot of gravitational pull apart from the team, right? There's a lot of things that, are not necessarily inherently bad, but pull away at the framework of what it means to bring people together, right? Coaches, we want to bring people together because together we can accomplish something as a group, as a collective, more so than what we can accomplish as individuals. And so you've got to fight those outside influences that try to pull those things apart. So a lot of times what we say is the kids haven't changed, it's the parents who have changed, because again, as I know as a parent, or we all want the best for our children, and at times, it can be confusing in the short term in terms of what's best for the individual as opposed to what's best for the team. And as a coach, you're always balancing that because you have to do what is best for the team. And oftentimes what's best for the individual in the long term is doing what's best for the team in the short term. And like I said, those are kind of, we spend a lot of time talking about that but that in essence is what team sports is all about. And in my mind, team anything is all about.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, one of the big things about a sort of residential community that we have here at Duke is this idea of being part of something bigger than yourself. We said at the top that getting connected to all the excellence and all the depth around here can be an adjustment too. People can have their moments where it might not go as well as it's gone before. And, probably our parents and families are coaching some of their students and young people through their first, failure, quote unquote failure, maybe less success than in the past. Or, this is the time of year people are looking for different opportunities. They might not be pulling up all the successes that they typically have in the past. Let's put it that way. How do you coach a player or, a kid in a moment of disappointment or a real setback? What do you have any ways to do that?
I think you made a great point, is you have to provide perspective.
Yeah.
Right. Is that, well, first of all, you tell them it's going to happen. Look, to be honest, we're not doing our job if they're not going to meet some sort of setback, and I think, again, as a coach or as a parent, there's the whole idea, like, are you preparing the child for the path, or are you preparing the path for the child? So we play a very challenging ACC schedule, right? And if we don't create challenges from January until August that match, if not exceed, the challenges that they're going to face in the fall, then we won't really know how we're going to respond. So in a point when things have come easy, I think you mentioned the same thing. A lot of our players, they were the best of the best in high school. And then they come to college and then they're not going to be the best of the best. And so what you learn is it's a superpower to persevere. It's a superpower to be able to overcome. And once you do that, because guess what? You'll leave college, and guess what you do again? You start at the bottom again. And those, we make a very express point that it's, to get all the way to the top of anything is very difficult because many people want to get there. That's why, there's not many people at the top. And so you've got to be willing to do things that other people won't do. And keep going where other people do surrender and quit. And when you do that, normally the rewards are pretty good.
Yeah. You know, I had a recent 2022 or 2023 grad in my office probably about 3 weeks ago, was back, I think, recruiting for his company. And he said, you know, he goes, you know, at Duke, people really listened to what we had to say and wanted to talk to us. We always had this feeling that we could share our ideas. And my new boss, the first time I offered my idea, my new boss goes, no one asked you what you think. He's like, that's the first time that's happened to me, right? And so helping our students sort of kind of be ready for those different environments where they have to start again after graduation is a big part of what we all do. All right, next question. I'm sure you're getting this all the time about NIL and name, image, and likeness, and all the ways it's been profoundly disruptive to sort of everything around sort of supporting students and sort of helping them navigate their pathway through a place like Duke. How has NIL changed the way you operate as a coach? How are you adapting to a constantly changing environment? That's the biggest thing I know about NIL is that it's literally changing by the minute.
Yeah, that's fair. So you have to make sure that your message is adapting to the current present reality. Look, I think where we're at with NIL and what's to come, because I think we know that it's going to change even in the next couple of years, is and I would say this to the parents or anybody on this call, a student who is not even in sports. Look, all we're doing is really we're just introducing the real world in some way, shape, or form at just a little earlier than normal. And money is not inherently a bad thing. And that's no different if you want to be great in football or if you want to be great in business or physics or anything. The question is that what's your master? And if money is your master, then at some point you're going to run into a problem. Hopefully that whatever it is that you're doing it with such a passion that the fact that you get money for it is actually the blessing, as opposed to simply just chasing the money. Because again, you're going to get into a point where, this is why I talked about success and excellence. You're going to get to a point where if that's what it's about, somebody will always have more. You'll be living a life of comparison, which always leads to ruin, because there's just you can never slay that monster of comparison, because you're overrun by the ego. So what we try to strive for is that, look, here are the great things that this game can now provide if you work and have your passion and have your goals in properly aligned. So it's important for us is that we talk through it, that we role model it ourselves, and are there for the guys to help them with the changing landscape.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that sort of expands out to sort of the broader Duke experience for many of our students. The amount of resources around us here at Duke are pretty head spinning, and sort of thinking about aligning purpose and values, thinking about where one goes forward, sort of having it be part of having sort of resource acquisition be part of the growth from here. That's part of the ROI in a place like Duke too, right? Helping people sort of be principled and thoughtful, and sort of understanding where that all, keeping track of oneself and one's purpose in that changing environment. Again, it expands to all of our students, not just our players, when you think about it that way. All right, so there is so much happening. I'm sure you can take questions about all the different changes in sports all the time, but another big one for us at Duke is the expansion of the ACC to include Stanford, Cal, and SMU starting next year, not this fall, but starting in the fall of 25. How do you foresee that conference realignment impacting sort of Duke in the next year? I mean, what are you all thinking about?
And they actually will be in our league. We actually host SMU this fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it shows you how rapidly it's changing. Well,
Oh my
I think
gosh.
that's what we're seeing. I think what we're completely aware of is the times they are changing, and what was yesterday is not going to be. And we know that there's more change to come, more than likely. But I think for our league to add, I think our league has always stood apart for the academic institutions that we have. The amount of private schools that are in the ACC that's different than some of the other what was a Power 5 leagues. And so to add schools like Stanford, Cal, SMU, not just what they do on the field or on the court, but also in the classroom, I think those are like fits. Obviously geography went out the window a long time ago with these conferences, and that's just the new normal. And so it'll be fun to compete against these schools. And I know for a university like Duke, and even some of the people that are watching this who might be living on the West Coast or in Texas. I mean, we've got we're a national brand. Our alumni are everywhere. So the more places that Duke gets to go play, I think the more exciting for the Duke community.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's going to be a lot of fun to sort of see that that footprint expand as we go forward. Last question, I think we might be taking some questions from the audience, I think. But last question here, what are you most looking forward to in the fall and in the spring 24-25, both on and off the field?
Well, certainly springtime, to get out. We have 15 days we're allowed to practice, which will start at the end of March and carry us into April. So that'll be fun just to get around, get out there and coach some football with the guys. But the fall, I just can't wait till game day, and again, I would just impress to everybody on this call. It is such a big part of the college experience, to be around home football games, because as much as I would love to say it's because of what's happening on the field, and certainly we want that to be a part of it. It's what happens that entire day on campus, whether that's tailgates, whether that's, meeting friends, whether that's, who you're sitting in the stands with, just the whole day experience on campus, should be special. And our job is to create something special, a product on the field that adds to the fun of the day. But those are the memories that last for a long time. And we're in a position now with the success that Duke has had on the football field the last 2 years. Half our student body, that's all they know. The freshmen and sophomores, that's all they know. And we continue to build off that momentum, and this will become as important of a part of the Duke experience as Cameron Indoor or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a real believer that, when our students get a chance to be a part of something, they remember quickly, they keep it as part of the culture, and they help boost all of the excitement and energy. And hopefully the players' experience and the sort of the broader Duke community's experience going forward. They've been terrific in the past couple of years. I know people are so excited to get out there. Dalton's going to hop back on and see if we have questions from anybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. And thanks, Mary Pat. We really appreciate hopping on here. I'm going to go ahead and invite listeners that are joining us to type your questions in the Q&A and field some of these questions. We do have a few that are already coming in, so let me go ahead and hop to them. Coach, and actually, Vice President McMahon, there's a couple of these that apply to you too. So this is a good conversation. Coach, is there a particular game on the schedule this year that you are looking forward to? Perhaps going back to Miami, the person writes.
Well, I mean, look, there's all kinds of games that are going to be excited. I do know that our ACC home opener, being from that group down 15-501, which I believe is the Duke Centennial weekend.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity for everybody around the Duke community to really just show off who we are on that occasion. I think that one's got a chance to be a really real special occasion.
It'll be fun. It's gonna be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one we as fans always circle as well. And I know that particularly for this group that's on the call, let me just make a little plug here. Is Family Weekend is the weekend of the FSU game. It's a Friday night game. So that will be another exciting one for us to join. This is one that I might pivot to both of you. Who is your hero? And maybe we'll start with you, Vice President McMahon, and then maybe jump to Coach Diaz afterwards.
I have a few different heroes. I'll name two. One, my aunt, who's 80 years old, came down and visited. I don't think she'd like that I just announced she's 80 years old, but she came down and visited last weekend here at Duke. And she is somebody who has lived a life of vitality, learning, family, and service for the whole time I've known her, and she's been my role model for a long time. She's very involved in Duke as an aunt of a VP. I don't know if that's a specific title that people have, but she's got some things she wants to do related to Quadex. She's got some things she wants to do related to student well-being. She's always good for an idea. My professional hero is Paula Johnson, who's the president of Wellesley College, who is as visionary about scale level behavioral intervention and well-being, and advancing the best of the higher ed experience for young people, advancing access, advancing science. As anyone I know, I get choked up talking about her. So there's your two, Mary Lynn, and then Paula Johnson.
Fascinating. I'll kind of go down to roads then as well. I mean, with one, I would say my mother and father, again, to use the family example, and they were very young when I was born, and in each of their unique ways, have really helped shape me to who I am. And then professionally, I was sort of raised in the late 90s at Florida State. Bobby Bowden was our head coach, and the way that he led in just a very selfless manner is something I started to emulate to this day. And his defense coordinator was a man named Mickey Andrews, who every year since working with him, I've always tried to have the defenses that I've coached try to, resemble the effort and relentlessness that his did. So two great models to learn from when I was a young coach in this profession.
Awesome. Thank you both. It's helpful for us to hear who our leaders are, hear that they had leaders who inspired them. And it's certainly helpful for our students to hear that as well. Coach, another question was, who is your coaching mentor? I think you answered that in that question. So I'll go to the next one. What is something that you've noticed that makes Duke athletes different?
I'm going to pass along something they told me. One of the guys, I was my first day on the job, and I met one-on-one with 15 or 20 of the guys. One of the guys told me, he said, look, he goes, when we're on campus every day, we are sitting with the best of the best. And he said, when we come back into the Yo football center, we're in our locker room, we feel like we have the best locker room in the country in terms of our culture and the way that our guys work for each other. And so I think what stood out to me was, I hadn't thought about the idea that, when they're on campus, everyone they're around has extraordinarily high standards. And we always say, high achievers don't normally like hanging out with mediocre people. And so the experience of a Duke athlete and who you get to be around at all times, I think is just so unique to anywhere else that I've ever worked. I've worked at a lot of other great universities, but nothing quite like this. And they really get the benefit from the experience of everyone that they're around, whether that's staff, faculty, student body, the whole works.
If I can brag on your guys just a little bit, one student that I know pretty well is getting his master's this year. He's looking to possibly, be in the NFL. He's also looking to possibly start a company, and he's really getting far in the company size. Jalen Coleman, I don't know how much time you've spent with him, but then also, thinking about ways to keep going with his academic pursuits. And I'll brag on him and say that the engineering department would love for him to stay and keep going in, serious intellectual pursuits. And we have so many students and student athletes who are making choices like that in a way that, you think it's maybe, maybe it's one or two. It's so many of our guys, and it's so many of our student athletes here at Duke. Mm-hmm. And it does make it fun for our students on PhDs and doing other things and other that our athletes are hanging right there with them in so many respects, innovation, ambition, academic potential, the whole thing. It's pretty cool.
That's a great response. But let me actually segues to the very next question, which I think both might be able to respond to as well. Some of our student athletes, if you're watching on TV and you're watching a game, you're a fan, you're cheering for them, and there's a way in which there is maybe an added layer of pressure that student athletes face, in addition to the academics, in addition to being kind of known on campus, but they also kind of have some pressures perhaps that's unique to being a student, right? That other students don't necessarily feel. How do you coach students, or what steps do you take to coach students and care for their well-being and their growth in light of that added layer of pressure? And that might be from the coaching perspective, but also from the student affairs perspective.
You want me to give you time? You got it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, one, we always say pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
Because normally if you're in a situation where people could perceive pressure, that means that you have a unique set of skills to put yourself in that position. But I think what we know now is that we have to make sure that we're working with the entire, makeup of our student athlete, and we spend a lot of time training their bodies, for peak performance, but we have to do the same thing by training their minds for peak performance. And I think that's something that we want to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of not just in terms of mental health for high performance on the field, for athletic performance, but also just mental health in terms of who we are when we're away from the game or away from the classroom, and to make sure that we're growing into the best version of ourselves. So I think that's something that we language a lot here, and we've got some great resources for our guys to help them out with that as well.
Yeah, it's great. Thing I'll add, just sort of generalizing it to the broader student population, we talk on a regular basis at Duke about imposter syndrome, right? This sort of moment when you think you're the only one in the room who isn't qualified to be there. Somehow there's been a mistake, or somehow you're going to get found out real quick. That happens with our faculty. It happens with our leaders. It happens with our students, and helping to discuss it as part of the it's not the flip side of that intense environment. It's a condition of stretching and growing and being a part of a challenging environment. Coach was saying before that, being able to, we wouldn't be doing our jobs right if the path was just smooth, and then helping continuously with our students as they specialize in different areas and grow, to see that sort of feeling of, I'm not sure I belong here, as part of the growth process. It's a fabulous conversation with students who are in the process of winning or have won major sort of global scholarships and fellowships. We had lunch with the president last weekend, and students were talking about this, and they, in many respects, from the academic sort of awards perspective, are the best of the best. And we all talked about imposter syndrome for over an hour, right? So reminding everybody at Duke on a regular basis that we need to be authentic in our learning and our growth, and no one's perfect and everyone's growing.
That's super helpful reflection for parents to hear, family members to hear, as you support your students. Sometimes perhaps your student might not come to you directly with that, but it's something that we face, and how to just help. That's an added layer that a lot of our students are facing, is super helpful. 2 quick questions. They'll be super brief. Perhaps if you could summarize your leadership style in just a few values, what would those few values be? And I'll ask that to both of you. And then I've got one last question for Coach Diaz before we wrap up.
Good first, Mary Pat, or
I can do it. I probably need a second to think. I can think for a second, because short is harder for me than long. Let's see. If you're ready, go. But if you're not, I'll keep thinking.
Well, I think as a leadership value, the first thing you have to be authentic. Mary Pat said a great thing when she was talking about President Price earlier. She used the term consistency over time. And it's funny, one of our core values is trust. And when we unpack what trust means, that's exactly what we talk about: consistency over time, right? How can you trust something that is either inconsistent, and then you can't really trust something until you've had a pattern of behavior over time to find out exactly who you are. So we use that word a lot. We use that word integrity, of being who you say you are, whatever that is, it's fine, but just being who you say you are. And when that happens, people, generally speaking, will begin to follow you.
All right, gives me a little time to come up with 3 words, and I'm going to go with humility, excellence, and uplift. I think my job is to bring humility and understand that everybody around here, again, back to this theme of everyone's really talented, and ensuring that we don't let our sort of swagger be the lead component of how we sort of come together as a community, that we're seeing the best of one another, thinking about the fact that we can accomplish more together than separately. And the humility, to me, is the big part of doing that. You're not on your own, you're part of a bigger team. Excellence in that I do think that sometimes in our day-to-day work, this is what I love about working with athletics, because athletics are so clear. All of our coaches, all of our student athletes, so clear on excellence is always part of the goal. The rest of us are too, but being able to sort of think about the fact that, like, right up front, right on Main Street, we're trying to bring excellence and consistency to everything we do, as a leadership team, as we support our students, and as we create an incredible experience here at Duke. And then the uplift part, the more I sit in my seat and the more I sort of spend time talking with broad ranges of people. We had a really exciting announcement today, renaming East Campus Marketplace, the Wall, the George Frank Wall and George Wall Center for Student Life on East Campus. It's one of the coolest things. If you haven't seen the announcement, check it out. one of the things I love most is going over to East Campus and Marketplace and just being with my incredible colleagues who work in Marketplace Dining. We have people over there who've been working for 42 years, 43 years, 37 years. Average time on that team is 23 years at Duke. Many families are from the Black community in Walltown, which is connected to the Wall family, or in Durham more broadly, and who have generations of people who've been working and sort of being part of our community here at Duke. One of my jobs is to uplift that as much as anybody else on campus, the team members there, the team members who come in every day and engage our students, look out for one another and think about how we're all sort of in this together. My job is to do as much uplifting of voices and connection and people. And so, yeah, humility, excellence, uplift. I don't know if uplift is a value, but I think you know what I mean.
That's great. Thank you for summarizing that. And folks, if you hadn't seen that article, it's on today.duke.edu. It's the cover story for today's news cycle. So, final question, Coach, for you. What is the one thing that you would like us to, as parents and as family members, to communicate to our students about how best to support you and the football team in this upcoming season?
We tell our guys that for as hard as they work, like I said, it's so unique to think about this. We have 6 home games this year. And that's what I keep saying. It's crazy how much we do for as few dates as we get to do it for. And those 6, those are so special nights, special days. 2 of them are on a Friday. Our first game is on a Friday night. You mentioned the Parents Weekend game against Florida State on a Friday night. We have a good calendar this year. There's no game during home game during fall break. There's no home game during Thanksgiving. And there's nothing, and I've heard this from our players, there's nothing they love seeing more than people in the stands supporting them. And that's why, again, what we need to do is we're going to make the game day experience as exciting and as fun. Forget about what's going on the field. We'll take care of that, but just everything around Wallace Wade Stadium in that whole day. And what I always say this, let's make memories together, and I remember being in college and going to games and it's just, will anybody remember the third down in the third quarter? That there's a possibility you might, but often than not, you're going to remember being with your friends and you're going to remember the experience, and whether that's the parents being around with other parents, the students being around other students. And I'll say this to kind of wrap up the question. We get to decide, and I tell our players that we get to decide what type of team we want to be in. We get to decide what the game day atmosphere is like in that stadium, and the fact that that's in our control and we get to choose that is really fun, and it really gives our players such a boost to see that support behind them.
Awesome. Let me just echo that as well. As a proud season ticket holder, I'm thrilled to have you, Coach, at the helm of our team, but also just from the time I was a student 20 years ago till now, the difference in the game day experience is amazing. And so I can't think of a better time to be a Duke football fan, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. So on behalf of everyone joining the call, and on behalf of everyone who will watch this later, let me just thank you, congratulate you on this position, welcome you to Duke on behalf of the parents and families. Mary Pat, thank you for being here. Thank you for hosting tonight. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you for also being at the helm of our student affairs and really our campus life and the student experience. We're thrilled that we're under your leadership. Final word from either of you before we pass it off and head out. So
I'll just have 2 teenagers. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. People who have gone through 15-year-old and 13-year-old parenthood are my other heroes. Thanks for having your kids be with us here at Duke. That is, we all take that religion responsibility very seriously and appreciate our Duke parents so very much. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone again for joining us. We're going to have this posted to our YouTube page here soon as this is taken down. And then we will also see you back on March 26th for our conversation with INE. Thanks again, Coach Diaz. Thanks again, Vice President McMahon. We will see you all in Go Duke. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.